Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to the Rainbow Rundown, friends. It is Monday, July 10th. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and with me today is one of our interns here at Left of Str8 Radio, Leah. Welcome to the show, everybody. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First off, we didn't have a Rainbow Rundown last week due to our 8-year anniversary show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got some great comments on social media. We really appreciate it. I also want to remind everybody that we do have 1 week left to enter one of the 8 gift bags that we're giving away for the 8-year anniversary. Big thank you to our sponsors for that: Del Shores, Byron Lane, Steve Rowley, Scott Travis over at CBT Candle and Travis Hunt Productions, My Deku Streaming Service, and Jason Gaffney, the Dragtastic Coloring Book by Scott Clark, and a whole bunch of other goodies. We got some fun stuff. We got our little tote bag we're going to give away to everybody here. So you can see the tote bag. And we have the DVDs. And we have books. And we have coloring books signed by the author. So all sorts of goofy stuff we're going to be giving away. We're giving away 8 of those. So you have 2 ways to enter. You can either go to the website, www.leftofstr8radio.com, and just go to the contest page and put your name in over there with your email address. Or if you like, share, and comment on any of our Left of Str8 social media posts, you get an entry that way as well. So 2 ways to enter, and we really hope that you will enter in and get a chance to win one of those gift bags. So Leah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing great. This is your first time on air with us at Left of Str8 Radio, so welcome aboard. Leah has been doing some fantastic work for us behind the scenes the last couple weeks. Leah, let everyone know where you're from and what you're studying as far as what you might want to do in podcasting later on.
I'm from Mountain View, California, so Bay Area. It's great here, even though the cost of living is But I'm mostly focused on, I do a lot of like digital art, freelance design. With podcasting, I'm really interested in the gaming world, and I'm looking at potentially doing a lore podcast based off of one of my favorite video games.
Nice. That's going to be exciting. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, and she has some great ideas for a podcast, guys. So if you're into gaming, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that to come to Left of Str8 Radio Network very, very soon. Let's go ahead and jump into it today. We're going to give you all the stories that hit my radar this week and stuff I want to talk about. I'm going to start, of course, with that Supreme Court case that came down last week against the young lady who didn't want to, I'd say refused, but that's kind of misnomering it, did not want to create a website for an LGBTQ couple for a wedding website for them. So many different things to talk about on this. First off, the premise has turned out to be really kind of quite fake. First off, she's never done or never been asked to do an LGBT wedding website. This was just in case she was asked. She didn't want to have to do it. And secondly, one of the persons that she said asked her to make this LGBTQ website didn't exist. They're actually a straight person that was married when they were contacted about being named in the suit, the Supreme Court. So it actually went, on my opinion, false pretenses all the way up to the Supreme Court. The court did rule 6-3 in favor of the plaintiff. Her name is Lori Smith. She's a Christian website designer. The good thing is, one of our friends over at Queer News Daily did a great story on this, saying this is actually a lot more narrow decision than what we thought, because, of course, you're thinking, okay, you can discriminate against an LGBT couple for doing a website. What else can you discriminate against LGBTQ couples for? But my friend kind of researched into this a little more deeper and said this is actually kind of narrow, and it's for original custom goods or services that are custom to that person, and they have to be expressive in nature, and they have to actually express an actual meaning of what they want. So, what the court said in this opinion, if you look into it, was she advertised herself as a Christian website designer, that she wanted to, her clients were going to be just working with her on this. She's going to make it specific to them. And it seems like it could be a lot more narrow ruling than it is. Do you have any thoughts on this at all, Leah?
Well, I had a few friends of mine were talking about this, and I think the major points that people were talking a lot about were like, as you said, it was based on a hypothetical, essentially. And then the other thing was like they're worried that businesses will now be allowed to refuse service to same-sex couples or LGBTQ people. And then, yeah, looking into it, the legal experts generally said no because, like you said, it's centered on like expression. Of course, it's kind of interpretive on what counts as expression and what types of services would fall under that umbrella. But the law's usually a bit more strict on that point and more, I guess, categorical when it comes to definitions like that than the human mind might be. So it's not the apocalypse flag that I know a lot of people were worried it is. It's something to keep an eye on, I think, but I don't think it's like an immediate throw our hands in the air where they're coming.
Right. No, agreed. And I think that's why everyone, I mean, including me, I like kind of thought that at first as well. Then I read this article from my friend of mine, Nico, for Queer News Daily, and it kind of calmed me down a little bit. So I wasn't as hair on fire as I was, but it definitely does have ramification. I think it's going to come back before. I mean, we had the cake wedding cake
I
baker
remember that one.
that was part of it. That was a little narrow as well, but still in general, it's from the same state. They're both from Colorado, because Colorado
Yeah,
did enact this LGBT discrimination law. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens.
it is. I
That,
know, like, well, most experts were like, "Oh, it's not going to be, the big thing you're making it out to be." Some experts were saying, maybe not, but this is the type of thing that could be expanded on in coming years. And we all know what the current political climate is in this country.
well said, exactly. We have 6-3 majority, unfortunately, is the norm in a conservative bent right now, as we learned for Roe versus Wade and so many other things. Now, we did have some good news in North Carolina, kind of a double edged sword on the good news. The governor, Roy Cooper, there vetoed a trio of anti LGBTQ bills this past Wednesday, but it does set up a potential standoff with the Republican dominated legislature. Unfortunately, in North Carolina, Republicans have a veto proof majority where they can override a governor's veto. So, what happened is they put three bills through that the governor rejected. One was for restricting necessary medical care for trans minors, limit the participation of trans student athletes on school sports teams was the second one. And then thirdly, prevent teachers from discussing LGBTQ plus things in the classroom. So North Carolina's bill is very similar to the Don't Say Gay law in Florida, and that was just kind of ramped up and up, as you may or may not remember me talking about a couple weeks back. It started out that the ruling was for K through 3, then they brought it up through all of elementary school, and now they're implementing the bill all the way through high school. So this is kind of the same thing. This would ban instructors in K through 4 classrooms of including LGBTQ community in the curricula, which has now gone to high school, like I said, in Florida, where it's modeled after. So it's very interesting. It also kind of does a forced outing provision that's been done in other places, where the legislation requires teachers to notify parents if a student requests to change their name or pronoun in school records. Now, I don't know if that's a moot point. I don't know if a student can request that, but it does, if they do ask for that, that says, this law says that the parents have to be notified of that, basically outing them. So um, the youth healthcare ban revoked the license of any medical professional who offers transition care to minors. I mean, it's just really draconian based on this Florida job. What's your thoughts on this one, Leah?
Well, yeah, I think I'm concerned about what most people are concerned about, and that's the fact that it's probably going to be overridden because it's happened before where like he's blocked multiple bills like this and it's been overridden by the Republicans with
Right.
their veto proof majorities. And I know it's expected that these vetoes are not going to hold, which is like,
It's very
it's
scary
probably
when
going to
you look on
happen.
the maps. Right. It's very scary when you look on the maps right now. If there's like, I think it's up to 23 to 35 states right now that are looking to pass some kind of an LGBTQ ban of some kind or another, and it's all in the middle. You look at it, it's all in the middle of the states. I mean, the two coasts are still relatively open and free, but it's very much south and very much middle of the country trying to do all these bans. So
Yeah, it's
it's
definitely up there in terms of numbers of how many states are looking at banning or have already banned that kind of thing.
right. No, very scary indeed, for sure.
I
And I
think on
also
the other
wanted to
hand,
follow.
though,
Oh,
oh,
what's that?
I was going to say, on the other hand, it shows that like voting at even like the lower levels, not just presidential, but the state levels, local levels, it's important because I mean, we have a governor in North Carolina who actually wanted to block this stuff.
Right.
And that could have easily been a governor who was pushing that. So I think
Exactly.
there's a little silver lining there.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, you, like you say, we need to get these state legislatures turned around. Unfortunately, we have all these Republican legislatures, and that kind of is what's driving all of this, because they have even a governor that's Democratic can be overridden by the state legislature. So it's real important we're out there voting at the state level. I mean, even the president only has certain presidential powers, right? They can do certain executive orders, but it takes Congress to actually pass a law. So you need to always keep at least the Senate or the House from straying on any of this stuff. But it's just a very tight needle to thread there. So well
I mean, we
said.
saw the president just got blocked on the student loan forgiveness.
Exactly right. Yeah, there was a triple whammy. I mean, last week the Supreme Court just showed its really conservative stripe by doing not only the LGBT ban on the website, but also, as you just said, for that rule, and also the other law was for colleges admission. They took away any type of equal rights college registration for
Affirmative
admission,
action
affirmative action, exactly. So it was a triple whammy on the Supreme Court this week, for sure.
was. I think the main problem with the Supreme Court is that it's just a small group of people who can make these colossal changes, and you can't get rid of them.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what we're finding out. I mean, it's always been a relatively balanced court. You've had maybe one side or another have one extra person or so, but this is the first time it's really been this lopsided in quite a few years, and that lasts for an entire generation. These latest people we put in are relatively young, so they can be there for up to 40 years still to go. So it's
They
very scary.
reduce term limits.
Right. No, it's very scary. Speaking of legislatures and state legislatures, I did want to do a follow-up report to a story I talked about a couple weeks ago on the rundown. We talked about Target, and they're pulling Pride merchandise last month because they're for the safety of their employees, supposedly. Target caved to a lot of these groups, and now there's 7 attorney generals from 7 Republican state legislatures that have sent a letter to Target's main office in Minnesota, where they're based out of, And the letter is kind of claiming that their clothes and everything they did for Pride was against that state's child protection laws. It didn't really make clear what they want the company to do about it, but these 7 attorney generals are for Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana, Idaho, Mississippi, and South Carolina. So 6 relatively southern states, and then Indiana, right next door to where I'm at here in Ohio. The attorney generals sent this letter to Target saying, we may be coming after you for selling this Pride merchandise, even though it came out subsequently that none of the ones that they have the real problem with were for children. I mean, the big thing was talking about, I think, different padding in the crotch area and stuff like that, and those were only available to adults. So it was kind of false pretenses there as well. And you're going to be complaining about a onesie that has a pride thing about it for your child? I mean, how many same-sex couples are adopting these days or actually fostering parents, right? What are your thoughts on this, Leah?
Well, it's a pretty standard move for the right to hide behind, oh, it's best for the children. I mean, that's what it is. They're hiding behind it because, I mean, they've showed politically they don't really care for the children past birth. I kind of wish Target would take more of a stance against this kind of thing. The fact that they're caving to the demands of these extremists, it's not. I mean, it just goes to show how far corporate pride really goes, which is until it stops being profitable.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about it on this show before about the rainbow washing during Pride Month, where rainbow everything for people to make money off it, but where do they talk about it the other 11 months of the year, right? So it's real important that these corporations back these things. I think one organization just changed a conference down in Florida. So, I mean, people are doing it, but it's not as much as we want to see done. And I think you're exactly right. Target has to step up and say that they're 100% backing on this, that merchandise, why not have a Pride merchandise thing all year round? There should be stuff available to show your Rainbow Pride, not to order online for everything, right? So. Mm-hmm. All right, and last negative one I'll go into for the day, then we'll try to keep it positive for the rest of the show today. I did want to talk about Governor Ron DeSantis, that we unfortunately have to talk about every show. Him and Trump do something stupid every week for us. But Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's officially running for president now, had an ad go out last week that went viral that totally criticized Donald Trump's stance on LGBTQ rights. It was taken from a very narrow video that Trump had put out early in his presidency supporting LGBTQ, a law that had passed of some kind. And DeSantis has taken this to paint Donald Trump as pro-LGBT, which he never was. I mean, he was back when he was a Democrat. He was a little more, didn't care one way or the other. But his presidency was never friendly to the LGBTQ community. And so DeSantis is using this for a campaign ad. And it's really weird because not only is it showing these supposedly pro-Trump messages, but it's interspersed with like pictures of bodybuilder guys and pictures of, and kind of homoerotic pictures even in it. I just thought it was a very strange ad to run to begin with. And it did kind of feature the Pulse shooting on it, which I thought was very poor taste, of course. It was a crazy ad. And then his wife had her wife, DeSantis' wife, Casey, had her own one up that says, keep your hands off our children, and talked about trans athletes and showed like a Folsom Days from San Francisco with a guy in a pup hood on a leash, which is just queer baiting in its most blatant form to it. Have you seen any of these ads, Leah, or know anything about these?
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard about it. It kind of happened all over Twitter, really. And I mean, yeah, Trump is hardly an LGBTQ ally. He rolled back tons of protections for LGBTQ people. He banned trans people from the military. Like this is not this is not an ally, but for DeSantis's purposes, it's good to paint him like that to get, the far right on his side over Trump.
Right.
But it really it's leading to a lot of infighting between Republicans. I know I saw this one tweet. I have it up. David Leatherwood, who is on the Gays Against Groomers board, resigned after finding out that the founder, Jamie Mitchell, was on DeSantis's payroll. He said, Team DeSantis is now using gays and lesbians as a wedge issue to divide the Republican Party and smearing Trump for being the most pro-gay Republican in history. Apparently, it's no longer about protecting children, it's going after gays. Which it was the entire time. I don't think any level-minded person would believe that it's about protecting children. They were always going after gays.
Right. I mean, that Gays for Groomers group was featured in February. I saw a lot of articles on it, and now DeSantis has almost ruined them, thank goodness, because it was just such a disgusting organization to begin with, these Gays for Groomers, supposedly gay people supporting not reaching out and trying to sexualize things to children, which 99.9% of LGBTQ people do not do. And the whole group was founded by these very far-right people to begin with. So it's like just kind of crazy that it's nice that DeSantis is now killing this group because it was so unrepresentative of the LGBTQ population in general. It's I don't know.
It's also killing a lot of support from LGBTQ Republicans,
right?
Which is kind of funny to look at from when you take a step back.
Yeah, when you have the log cabin Republicans condemning it, you're in trouble, right? Because they kind of let anything go. They don't protect their own community 99% of the time. And even the log cabin Republicans denounced it. So. Very, very true. All right, so if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to go check it out. It's very, very strange was the best way to put it. I mean, to put Trump as an ally and to show these little homophobic images kind of super cut, fast cut between these things, it was a very crazy thing to watch. So
and they doubled down on it as well, the campaign.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He supported 100%. He says, "Oh, I'm not going to pull it. Why would I pull that ad?" It's like, because it's really weird and you're really crazy. Okay, whatever. All right, well, let's jump into some more friendly news here. That's kind of the things that were really kind of ticking me off this past week. But there is some really cool things going on that we're going to talk about in entertainment in general. That's usually where we can find the good news is entertainment, right? There's a new podcast out called Finding Fire Island. It's kind of a docu-podcast series. It talks about how life in the beach town kind of came to be. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, you take a ferry from New York to get to Fire Island, and it has two majorly gay communities on the island. One is called Cherry Grove and one is called the Pines, and very popular with the gay community, especially summer, spring to late fall maybe for that. A lot of people have houses on it. A lot of people rent houses there every summer. And so this documentary is kind of talking about the queer history of how this came about to be a gay mecca from the 1950s to today. And they really have some strong names attached to it. Margaret Cho, an amazing bisexual comedian, of course, Joel Kim Booster, and Matt Rogers, who did their own little movie of the week called Fire Island. A lot of my friends were in this movie, and I talked to them about it. They're going to be part of the cast. They're interviewing, along with screenwriter Paul Rudnick, who's done Sister Act and First Wives Club. Brian Moylan is a Vulture author of Housewives. Zach Stafford, former editor-in-chief of The Advocate. Tony Award winner from The Strange Loop. Theater director Ben Rimenlauer is on. So just a lot of people that are involved in this. I myself has not been to Fire Island. I'm very disappointed in that, I have to admit. It's a big, like I said, gay mecca in there. I don't think it's anything you would be too familiar with, Leah, but I am interested in watching the documentary. Have you heard of Fire Pines ever mentioned before?
No,
Fire Island
so
mentioned before?
it was really interesting for me to learn about it because there's so many like little nooks and crannies in queer history that I just have not come across because it's not something that you get to like learn about in standard education. So
Exactly.
like whenever I get the chance to learn about something like that, it's super cool. I think my favorite fact that I learned was that the land between the Pines and Cherry Grove is called the Meat Rack.
I know, right?
You can't top that.
We don't, yeah, and we don't even need to go why it's called that, but you can kind of let your imagination.
You got the context clues.
It has huge, what they call tea parties. They have drag shows there all the time. It's just a very, very welcome and affirming community and a lot of fun. And so, have a chance, catch the documentary podcast, Finding Fire Island. And if you haven't seen the movie Fire Island yet, with Joel Kim Booster and Matt Rogers and our friend Nick, oh God, what's Nick's last name? I can't remember right now. But Nick is in it, and Margaret Cho is in it, and so many great actors. Zane Phillips is in it, who we talk about a lot in the show, who is in Glamorous now. So a lot of great people in that movie of the week type thing. You can find that I think on Netflix as well. But yeah, that's a fun little story to talk about. Next up, I really found this interesting, and I haven't had a chance to really go through it yet. But there's a new photo book out. It's by Patrick McCoy, and that's Patric McCoy, and he was an environmental scientist by trade, Chicago born and raised photographer. He's become a very well-known photographer and an art collector. He still continues to collect contemporary Black art, which is a passion he's pursued for 50 years now. He's amassed over 1,300 pieces of fine art, 90% of them created right in Chicago, where he's from. Excuse me. In 2003, McCoy co-founded the nonprofit Diasporal Rhythms. It's an arts organization that promotes the collection of art from African diaspora. Its latest exhibit is called Take My Picture. He puts himself behind the camera with other Black queer men in front of the lens. The exhibit takes place at Chicago's Wrightwood Gallery, 659 Gallery. And it's all about pictures that he's taken through 1980 Chicago, unstaged shots of Black queer men within the Loop, which is Chicago's downtown. The exhibit has 10 years worth of photos and a collection of 10 years of untold stories. So I think I find that very interesting. I love when we have different art and different things from different part of communities, from LGBTQ culture. Black queer community is really underrepresented in a lot of ways. So I'm excited to see that. We have one of our interns in Chicago. We should send Connor there and have him take some pictures.
Research expedition.
There you go. Exactly. Anyway, did you have anything to add on that one?
It's always great when you can see art from a different lens. I took a lot of art history classes during my studies as design major, and I really wish we had covered Patrick McCoy in my history of photography class, because I mean we covered some pretty cool photographers in there, but I would have loved to see something from the Black queer community, because like you said, you really don't see a lot of that.
Right. No, it's great when you can find it out there, and I'll try to promote it whenever I can. So, Patrick McCoy, look for this. And like I said, it's an exhibit if you're in the Chicago area, and hopefully it'll be turned into a book soon, and we can actually find the book on it because I would love to have that coffee table book. It would be amazing. All right, next story is very, very sad for Ricky Martin and very, very happy for me. Pop star Ricky Martin and his husband Juan Joseph have announced they're divorcing after 6 years of marriage. Never nice, never good news when someone's divorcing. But I've been a fan of Ricky Martin for so long, so maybe I have a shot. Who knows? But anyway, the Puerto Rican singer is 51 years old and looking damn good. The Syrian Swedish born Joseph was 38 and an artist. They did a joint statement to People magazine on Thursday that's saying we've decided to end our marriage with love, respect, and dignity for our children and honoring what we've experienced as a couple all these wonderful years. The couple has two kids together. Their daughter Lucia was born in 2018, and their son Ren was born in 2019. Of course, Martin's also the father to twins, Matteo and Valentino, born in 2008. They're getting so big these days. So they said, our greatest desire now is to continue having a healthy family dynamic and a relationship centered on peace and friendship, to continue the joint upbringing of our children, preserving the respect and love we have for each other. So I love that. Of course, Martin will continue raising his twins as a single father, since he had those before the marriage. But I'm glad to hear they're co-parenting the children they have. It sounds like it was an amicable breakup. It's hard for a lot of entertainment people in the industry to keep a marriage going. I have my hats off to anyone that has a long and happy marriage in the entertainment industry because you don't see it that often, right?
Yeah, I'm sure having like paparazzi swarming everywhere and covering every little stage in your relationship doesn't help. I mean,
Right?
it takes a lot to stand up to that level of scrutiny, and I'm glad their breakup was amicable and that they're going to continue co-parenting. That's probably one of the healthiest resolutions you can see when you come across articles about celebrity divorce.
Right. And I mean, we fought so hard for marriage equality that comes with the downside too, right? We have to figure out how to do all those things and the co-parenting and the dividing of assets and things that we never really did before as a community. It's real important that we learn about those things and that we do it respectfully and honestly and hopefully for the best of everyone involved. I mean, not all relationships end well, unfortunately, and so there's stories of that as well. But I'm glad to hear that they're doing it very amicably, it seems so far, at least in the press and publicly. So we got to take them at their word and just respect the children. All right, let's finish up with a couple of things on the pipeline. There's two Netflix documentaries, and you have a story about a film, right? What's your story on your
I
film?
do. Oh, do you want it now or after?
Yeah, go ahead and do it now.
Oh, okay. So on June 30th, last day of Pride Month, there was a animated movie called Nimona released on Netflix, and it's one of those few movies where you can like see overt queerness in media. Um, so it's about a knight named Ballister and a shapeshifter named Nimona. It tackles themes of individuality, identity, and acceptance. It's an explicitly queer story. It features an on-screen gay romance and voices of LGBTQ actors like Eugene Lee Yang, India Moore, Julio Torres, and RuPaul. And then you have Nimona herself, who is a clear transgender allegory. So people in the movie, like it does tackle some darker stuff. People in the movie treat her like a monster because of her shape shifting, but she refuses to let others put her in a box, and she fights for her identity. It was originally based on a graphic novel written by N.D. Stevenson, who has come out as Transmask himself, which is really cool. So you have it like top to bottom, queer influence everywhere. And it was originally being produced by Fox's Blue Sky Studios, but that kind of fell out of things when Disney acquired the studio in 2019, and apparently, according to former Blue Sky collaborators, the Disney higher-ups weren't very enthusiastic about the queer characters and story, and the animation team allegedly felt pressured to like leave mentions of the same-sex kiss out of presentations to Disney. And then when the studio got shut down, Nimona was about 75% complete, but it wasn't going to be published until Netflix swooped in and picked it up, and then it became a success. So, I mean, Disney really missed out on this one, and it's a great movie, and the animation is fantastic.
Oh, I'm excited about that. That sounds exciting. Yeah, Disney has such a love-hate relationship with the LGBTQ community. We've talked about it quite a few times. They do some things very, very well, and some things very, very poorly. And this sounds like one they really
throw
dropped
in
the ball.
little scraps of representation, but then when it comes to the big stuff, they're like, oh no.
Right, exactly. That sounds amazing, and I love that it kind of has a shapeshifter. I mean, there's so many possibilities for it. I can just think of off the top of my head without even seeing it of what you can do to represent the community. That's amazing. Very, very cool. And is it?
It's great. I love the art style. Would watch it again and again, probably.
I am going to look for that on my little Netflix queue here. Speaking of which, I mean, there's two great documentaries that are out right now. One on Netflix is the Wham documentary, and then over on HBO Max, or just called Max now, is the Rock Hudson documentary. Both very, very interesting. Wham is it's kind of really focuses on George Michael a lot, since he was the front man of there. Andrew Ridgeley really didn't want George to come out in the beginning. It kind of focuses on that a bit. Kind of, they've always kind of tongue in cheek asked, what does Andrew do in the band? And well, he plays guitar. It's like, yeah, but he played, that's about all he ever really did in the group. And he kind of made it more behind the scenes. And this documentary doesn't give him much more front time in it, except to talk a little bit about George Michael. He wasn't really, he thought it would hurt their career if George Michael came out. But it talks about George being a solo artist. It talks about how they weren't that successful. The very first song didn't even hit the top 100 in England at the time. And they happened to get lucky. They were substituted last minute in a show called Top of the Pops. It was a huge hit over in Britain. And they did a different, they took a last minute gig because another band backed out, and showed George Michael kind of bare chested in this brown leather kind of vest thing, singing Young Guns, which is one of their, not one of their better songs, but it definitely had the hook to it. And from that, it got them picked back up again. All of a sudden, their singles started flying up the charts. And very soon after that, in 1984, is when they released probably one of their biggest hits, Careless Whisper. And they had that in their pocket for a while. I mean, that was written, I think, back in 81. But they waited because they weren't that popular out. They waited on that one because they knew it was going to be a pretty big song. Are you familiar with Wham much just from listening at all, Leah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've listened to my fair share of Wham songs. My friends and I participate in Whamageddon around Christmas time.
Oh, nice.
Is, you lose whenever you hear Last Christmas come out over like the radio or in a store or something. So it's a fun little elimination game.
I like that. That is very cool. A reverse drinking game. You're out when you hear the song. That is too funny. And then again, the other documentary is on Rock Hudson, talking about his early life and his closeted career, being in the closet the entire time. There's a great, I think it's Queerty has a great thing about Pillow Talk, his movie with Doris Day, that kind of has a lot of subtle gay references in it. People might not have caught it all. But the documentary really goes through Rock Hudson's career before coming out, which he kind of had to because of his AIDS diagnosis at the time. It's a pretty powerful documentary. on Max. So if you have a chance to see those, they're both, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a huge oldies film person. My mom is huge watching all those, so I got familiar through her. But Rock Hudson was so big in the day. Have you ever seen any of his movies, Leah?
I don't think so. I think most of the stuff I learned about him was just from hearing about the documentary.
Right. Yeah, very. It's like I said, it's nice when we're doing the slice of these. We did it recently with Tab Hunter. There was a documentary called Tab Hunter Confidential, and Tab Hunter was a huge movie star back in the day that was closeted gay the entire time, and he actually had an affair or a long-term kind of off and on relationship with Gregory Peck from Psycho. Oh, not Gregory Peck. Yeah, it was Gregory Peck. Psycho fame. So yeah, you don't hear about these things till later on, but the documentary is kind of amazing. So that's it, and that's all the news I had fit to print this week. Anything else on your radar that you wanted to talk about?
No, that covered all the things I've been hearing about as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Leah. Leah has been doing, like I said, great work behind the scenes here at Left of Str8 Radio. Be sure to look for her upcoming podcast. It's going to be, if you're a gamer, I think you're going to really enjoy it a lot. We're going to have at least one episode here as part of her internship. I do want to remind everyone, since the 8-year anniversary, we have gone up on Patreon. If you're not following us on Patreon and become a member, we would definitely appreciate it. Kind of helps us get pay for some of the incidentals. If you go over to patreon.com, that's patreon.com/left of straight, always spelled LEFTOFSTR and the number 8. So www.patreon.com/left of straight. You can become a Patreon member and follow the Left of Str8 website and help support us, help pay for some of the hosting for our editing programs and for our filming programs and for different things we like to do and our giveaways we like to do. Starts at just $3 a month. For $3 a month, you can help support the podcast. You get a thank you postcard from me. You get a thank you on our website. A big thanks to Mark Schwab, who's one of our initial people to go on Patreon in the $3 level. So thank you, and a big shout out to Mark. We'll shout you out every week when you join the Patreon page. For $8 a month, you get the postcard and the thank you on the website, along with an I Support LGBTQ Talk Radio sticker, 10% off merchandise in the upcoming Left of Str8 store. And you also get early access to episodes because we pre-tape most of our episodes now for Left of Str8 Radio. And you will get a first chance season before anyone else access to a Left of Str8 chat over on Discord. And we'll also take out all commercials of those early episodes as well. So you get that for $8 a month. And then for $13 a month, our highest tier, you get all those things I said before. Plus, you can listen in on our recordings. So if you ever wanted to be kind of a fly on the wall, we're talking to an LGBTQ celebrity or personality, you can actually listen into our actual recording. We give you a link to listen to it that day. If you have any questions for whoever our guest is, we'll ask them on air there. And you also get a private chat room with that. You get a Left of Str8 tote bag and 20% off merchandise plus extra special episodes that not everyone gets to see. So please support the show on Patreon. Again, www.patreon.com/left of straight. And we appreciate it immensely. And on this week's Left of Str8 show, we got 6 great interviews coming at you. Also, tomorrow, if it's a Tuesday, we always have our 5 questions with. And this week, we're doing 5 questions with musicians Tom Goss and EJ Michaels. You can check that out tomorrow. And then we have 6 interviews coming up for you this week. Usually they're out on Thursday and Friday. We have so many we're trying to catch up on from Pride Month that we have them Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll be having Terry Ray, Stan Zimmerman, Mark Schwab, Panos Soklas, guests from the Multi-Amory podcast, and also from the No New Friends podcast. So be sure to check that out. And Leah, you guys are doing a great job over at the Left of Str8 social media for the interns. Where can they find you guys over there?
Oh, we're on Left of Str8 radio at pretty much, I think, all relevant ads. If I have it in my memory, except Instagram, where it's like the Left of Str8 interns specifically.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit of something like we did. Leah, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. You're listening to Left of Str8 Show Rainbow Rundown right here in the Left of Str8 Radio Network. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Left of Str8 Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website, www.leftofstraightradio.com, for contests and other news and information. See you next week.